Here's a question that sounds simple but isn't. What's the hardest language to learn? Ask most people, and they'll say Chinese, or maybe Japanese, or Arabic. They'll point to the weird characters, the strange sounds, the things that look nothing like English, and are not entirely wrong, but they're missing something fundamental. Because the real answer to what's the hardest language depends entirely on a question almost nobody thinks to ask first. Hard for whom? A kid growing up in Seoul doesn't find Korean hard. A child in Cairo doesn't struggle with Arabic. These languages aren't inherently difficult. They're difficult relative to what your brain already knows. And that reframe changes everything about how this list works. I'm going to rank 7 of the hardest languages to learn right now, but I'm not just going to list them and move on. I'm going to show you exactly what makes each one brutal, what kind of difficulty it throws at you, and why some languages that look easy on paper will quietly destroy you, while others that look terrifying are actually more manageable than you'd think. Now, before we start the countdown, I need to explain the framework. The U.S. Foreign Service Institute, the organization that trains American diplomats to speak foreign languages, has been doing this for over 70 years. They've tracked how long it takes English speakers to reach professional fluency in dozens of languages. And their data breaks everything into categories. Category I languages, things like Spanish, French, Dutch, take about 600 class hours. Category V languages, the hardest ones, take 2,200 hours. That's nearly 4 times longer. Same classroom, same teachers, same motivated students, 4 times the hours. That gap tells you something real about how languages differ in difficulty. But hours alone don't capture why a language is hard. Because difficulty isn't one thing. It's at least 5 things. And different languages attack you on different fronts. So here's how I'm ranking this. I'm tracking 5 dimensions. Writing system complexity, how many symbols you need to learn just to read a street sign. Sound system difficulty, how many sounds exist that your mouth has literally never made before. Grammar complexity, how many rules govern how words change, move, and connect. Cultural distance, how different the logic of the language is from the logic you grew up with. And finally, what I'm calling the trap factor. How many hidden layers of difficulty only reveal themselves after you think you're making progress? Let's go. At number 7, I have Hungarian, and I can already hear some of you. Hungarian over Russian over Thai? Yes, and here's why. Hungarian has 18 grammatical cases. 18, for context, English has basically none. German has 4, and German students already complain about those. Russian has 6. Finnish, which everyone agrees is difficult, has 15. Hungarian has 18. Each one changes the ending of a noun depending on its role in the sentence. On the table, from the table, to the table, into the table, onto the table, off the table. Each one is a different suffix, a different ending you have to memorize and deploy in real time while also trying to say something meaningful. But here's what makes Hungarian truly unusual. It's a linguistic orphan in Europe. Almost every European language belongs to the Indo-European family. French, German, Russian, Greek, Hindi, they're all distant cousins. Hungarian is Uralic. Its closest relatives are Finnish and Estonian, and even those are distant. A Hungarian word looks nothing like its English, French, or German equivalent. There are almost 0 cognates, no free vocabulary. Every single word has to be learned from scratch. The Foreign Service Institute puts Hungarian in Category 4, 44 weeks, 1,100 hours. Same category as Russian and Vietnamese. But many learners who've tried both say Hungarian feels harder, because with Russian, at least the vocabulary occasionally reminds you of something familiar. Hungarian gives you nothing to hold on to. Number 6 is Thai. And this is where sound becomes the enemy. Thai has 5 tones. 5. The same syllable, same consonants, same vowel, pronounced at 5 different pitches, means 5 completely different things. The word may can mean new, silk, burn, wood, or function as a question particle, depending on the tone. That's not a quirk. That's the entire structural foundation of the language. Get the tone wrong, And you haven't made a small mistake. You've said a completely different word. Now, English speakers have almost no experience with tonal distinctions. English uses pitch for emphasis and emotion, not meaning. So when an English speaker encounters Thai, their brain literally does not have the wiring to hear the differences, let alone reproduce them. It's like asking someone who's only ever seen in black and white to suddenly distinguish between 5 shades of blue. Your perceptual system just hasn't been trained to detect them. On top of the tones, Thai has its own script, 44 consonants, 15 vowel symbols that combine into roughly 32 vowel forms, and 4 tone marks. It's learnable, but it's a significant upfront investment before you can read a menu. The FSI puts Thai at 44 weeks with an asterisk. That asterisk means usually more difficult than other languages in the same category. The tones are why. Number 5 is Korean. Here's the thing about Korean that tricks people. The writing system, Hangul, is genuinely brilliant. It was designed in the 15th century by a king who wanted literacy to be accessible to common people. You can learn to read Hangul in a weekend, maybe 2. The characters are logical, phonetic, and beautifully systematic. It might be the most elegantly designed writing system in human history. And then the actual language shows up. Korean grammar is almost a mirror image of English. The verb goes at the end of the sentence. Subjects are frequently dropped. Particles attach to nouns to indicate grammatical function. And their usage has subtle distinctions that take years to internalize. The sentence structure isn't just different from English. It runs in the opposite direction. But the real killer is the honorific system. Korean has multiple speech levels, not just formal and informal like French with tu and vous. Korean has at least 6 or 7 distinct levels of politeness built into the verb endings. The way you conjugate a verb changes depending on who you're talking to, who you're talking about, and the social context of the conversation. Say the wrong level to the wrong person, and you haven't made a grammar mistake. You've made a social one. And in Korean culture, that matters enormously. The FSI puts Korean in category V, the hardest category, 2,200 hours. And Korean earns every one of them, not through its writing system, which is a gift, but through its grammar, its speech levels, and its fundamental difference from how English structures thought. Number 4 is Mandarin Chinese. And this one, everybody expects, but probably for the wrong reasons. Most people think Mandarin is hard because of the characters. And yes, the writing system is enormous. You need roughly 3,000 characters to read a newspaper. Each one has to be individually memorized. There's no alphabet, no sounding things out, no way to look at a character you've never seen and guess how it's pronounced. That's a real barrier, and it's a massive time investment. But here's what's counterintuitive. The grammar is shockingly simple. No verb conjugation. No tenses built into the verb itself. No grammatical gender. No plural markers unless you specifically choose to add one. Word order that often resembles English. In terms of pure sentence construction, Mandarin is arguably easier than French. The difficulty is almost entirely in 2 places. The characters, which we've talked about, and the tones. Mandarin has 4 tones plus a neutral tone. The syllable ma means mother, hemp, horse, or scold, depending on the pitch contour. Like Thai, this is a dimension of language that English speakers have no training in. And because Mandarin has a relatively small number of distinct syllables, roughly 400, compared to English's thousands, the tones are doing critical work. Without them, the language would be a wall of homophones. The tones are the only thing keeping meanings apart. Here's the number that puts this in perspective. The FSI estimates 2,200 hours to reach professional proficiency. That's 88 weeks of intensive study. Compare that to Spanish at 24 weeks. A diplomat could reach professional fluency in Spanish, then French, then Portuguese, and still have hours left over before matching a single Chinese timeline. But Mandarin's grammar simplicity means something important. You can start communicating in Mandarin surprisingly quickly. You just can't read anything. The spoken language lets you in early. The written language keeps you out for years. It's a language that gives you a taste and then makes you work for the meal. Number 3 is Arabic. And this is where the difficulty stops being about any one thing and becomes about everything at once. Arabic hits you on every front simultaneously. The script is written right to left. Short vowels are usually omitted in written text, which means you're reading a sentence with missing information and filling in the gaps from context and experience. The sounds include pharyngeal consonants, sounds produced so deep in the throat that most English speakers don't even know they have the muscles to make them. And the grammar features a root system where 3 consonants form the skeleton of a word, and different patterns of vowels and prefixes create dozens of related meanings from that single root. It's elegant once you understand it. Getting to that understanding takes a very long time. But here's the part that nobody warns you about, the part I'm calling Arabic's trap. Arabic isn't one language, it's arguably several. Modern Standard Arabic, the version taught in textbooks used in news broadcasts and official documents, is nobody's native language. Nobody speaks it at home. Nobody uses it to chat with friends or argue with their family. What people actually speak are regional dialects: Egyptian, Levantine, Gulf, Maghrebi, and these dialects differ from each other so dramatically that a speaker from Morocco and a speaker from Iraq may genuinely struggle to have a conversation. So you face an impossible choice before you even begin. Do you learn Modern Standard Arabic, which lets you read everything but talk to nobody naturally? Or do you learn a dialect, which lets you connect with real people in one region but leaves you illiterate and incomprehensible in another? Most serious learners end up needing to learn both. That's not learning one language. That's learning 1.5. The FSI puts Arabic in Category V, 2,200 hours. Same as Mandarin, same as Korean. But many learners report that Arabic feels harder in practice because the difficulty never lets up. There's no easy part. The script is hard, the sounds are hard, the grammar is hard. The diglossia, the split between formal and spoken Arabic, is hard. It's relentless. Number 2 is Mandarin Chinese's older, meaner sibling, Cantonese. Most people don't realize that Cantonese and Mandarin, while sharing a writing system, are not mutually intelligible when spoken. A Mandarin speaker cannot understand spoken Cantonese any more than a Spanish speaker can understand spoken Romanian. They're that different. Cantonese takes everything that makes Mandarin hard and turns the dial up. Mandarin has 4 tones, Cantonese has 6. Some analyses count as many as 9 if you include the entering tones, 6 to 9 different pitch patterns that distinguish meaning. Where Mandarin's tones are relatively spread out and distinct, Cantonese tones are closer together, harder to differentiate, and deployed at speeds that make your ear work harder than it ever has. And here's something that might surprise you. Cantonese doesn't have the institutional support that Mandarin does. Mandarin is the official language of the world's 2nd largest economy. It has massive government investment in teaching resources, textbooks, standardized curricula, and international programs. Cantonese has far less of that infrastructure. Finding high-quality Cantonese learning materials, especially for advanced learners, is genuinely difficult. The resources exist, but they're thinner on the ground. Cantonese also uses traditional Chinese characters, which are more complex than the simplified characters used for Mandarin in mainland China. More strokes per character, more visual complexity, more to memorize. The FSI groups Cantonese alongside Mandarin in Category V, 2,200 hours, but many linguists and learners quietly acknowledge that Cantonese is the harder of the two. More tones, fewer resources, and a spoken culture that moves fast and doesn't slow down for learners. And number 1, the single hardest major language for an English speaker to learn right now, Japanese. And the reason it's number 1 isn't any single feature. It's the combination. It's the fact that Japanese attacks you on every possible dimension simultaneously, and just when you think you figured one out, the next one ambushes you. Let's start with the writing system, because this alone would qualify Japanese for the top of any difficulty list. Japanese uses 3 separate scripts: hiragana, 46 characters used for native Japanese words and grammatical elements; katakana, another 46 characters representing the same sounds but used for foreign loanwords and emphasis; and kanji, Chinese characters imported over a millennium ago, of which you need to learn roughly 2,136 just to read a newspaper. That's the official government-mandated list, the kanji for daily use. Educated Japanese adults know between 2,000 and 3,000. The total number of kanji in existence exceeds 50,000. But here's what makes kanji in Japanese harder than characters in Chinese. In Chinese, each character generally has one pronunciation. In Japanese, most kanji have at least two readings, the onyomi, derived from the original Chinese pronunciation, and the kunyomi, the native Japanese pronunciation. Some kanji have 5 or 6 different readings, and which one you use depends on the word, the context, and sometimes just convention. You can't look at a kanji in Japanese and know how to say it. You have to know the word it's part of first. That's a layer of complexity that Chinese simply doesn't have. Then there's the grammar. Like Korean, Japanese puts the verb at the end. Particles mark grammatical function. Subjects vanish routinely. But Japanese adds another dimension that makes it uniquely punishing: the politeness system. Japanese has multiple levels of formality and honorifics built directly into the verb conjugation and vocabulary. There's plain form, polite form, humble form. And these aren't just different endings. They can be entirely different words. The verb to eat can be taberu in casual speech, tabemasu in polite speech, meshiagaru when speaking respectfully about someone else eating, or itadaku when humbly referring to yourself eating. 4 different words for the same action, selected based on social hierarchy, context, and your relationship to the person you're speaking about. Get this wrong, and you haven't conjugated incorrectly. You've misjudged a social relationship. In Japanese culture, that can be a genuinely significant error. And then, underneath all of this, there's what I think makes Japanese the single hardest language on this list: the cultural logic. Japanese communication relies heavily on what isn't said: context, implication, indirectness, and reading the atmosphere, a concept the Japanese call kuki wo yomu, literally reading the air, meaning lives between the words as much as inside them. You can have perfect grammar, perfect kanji knowledge, and perfect pitch, and still completely miss what someone is actually telling you. The Foreign Service Institute puts Japanese at the top of category phi with an asterisk, the only language consistently ranked as the single hardest for English speakers. 2,200 hours minimum. And many learners say even that estimate is optimistic. The writing system alone could consume a year of full-time study before you're functionally literate. Now, I know this list is going to start arguments. Some of you are going to say Finnish should be here, or Navajo, or Georgian. And honestly, you might have a case. Any ranking of language difficulty is partly subjective, because difficulty is always relative to the learner. But here's what I find most fascinating about all of this. We treat language difficulty like it's a problem to be solved, like hard languages are obstacles, barriers, mountains to climb over. But that's not what they are. Every feature that makes a language hard, the tones, the honorifics, the case endings, the kanji, they're not there to make your life difficult. They're there because some community of human beings over thousands of years decided that this distinction mattered, that the difference between 5 pitches carried meaning worth preserving, that the relationship between a speaker and a listener deserved to be encoded into every single verb, that a concept was important enough to earn its own symbol. Difficulty is just the distance between your world and someone else's. And the harder the language, the further you're traveling. The more you're stretching your brain to accommodate a way of thinking that's genuinely different from your own, that's not an obstacle. That's the whole point. Every one of these languages carries inside it a civilization's way of understanding reality. The tones of Cantonese, the indirectness of Japanese, the root system of Arabic that connects justice and beauty and balance through 3 shared consonants. These aren't just communication tools. They're philosophies compressed into grammar. And the hardest languages, they're the ones with the most to teach you. See you in the next one.